coach, I understand the importance of positive energy and inspiring others to become the best version of themselves. With an emphasis on personal and professional growth and development, I help individuals, entrepreneurs, and organizations to succeed by addressing their limiting mindsets. Learn how to go beyond your limiting beliefs and maximize your individual strengths to unlock your true potential to thrive. Are you ready to go beyond, to live your best life now? Contact me, ReadySetGoBeyond.com or 305-753-6758.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
AMP2.TV presents Tell Us Your Business, where you're invited on the air to tell us what makes your business stand out in the community. It's important we hear from you to tell us all we need to know about what you do best. Tell Us Your Business uses the latest radio and television production systems, and all shows can be seen on AMP2.TV. If you have a question for our guest, call 888-565-1470. Now, let's get ready as our guest hits the airwaves and informs us about what we need to know on Tell Us Your Business.
Hello, welcome to Tell Us Your Biz. My name is Carrie Morrison. I'm going to be your host today. I am joined by Natalie with ISR, and we're going to be talking about something very near and dear to my heart today. We're going to be talking about childhood drowning prevention, something that is very important. And first, I would like to tell you a little bit about my story. On November 30th, 2013, my son, Jake, had a drowning accident while we were visiting family members for the Thanksgiving Day holiday, and forever changed our lives. Jake was 6 weeks shy of his third birthday, one of the happiest, sweet little boys you'd ever meet, and it was something that really shook our family to the core. And after he passed away, we learned that drowning was the leading cause of accidental death for children ages 1 to 4. And we knew something needed to be done about that. And our daughter was 3 months old when we lost Jake. And as soon as she was old enough, we enrolled her in ISR, which stands for Infant Swimming Resource Lessons, which Natalie is an instructor. And just a few weeks into her lessons, we were so blown away by the program and that it could have saved Jake's life that we decided to create our foundation, which is called Live Like Jake. And we provide scholarships for these lessons all around the nation. We also have with us today Mr. Eric Lupton from Lifesaver Pool Fence. But anyway, so the main reason that we're here today is to tell you a little bit about our foundation and also about drowning prevention. As I mentioned, it is the leading cause of accidental death in children ages 1 to 4. And we truly believe, right, Eric, you do this campaign, that the layers of protection are the solution. And I'll let you maybe chime in on the layers of protection.
Yeah, so my family actually coined the term layers of protection in 1987.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
And then my dad put it into a book in 1989. He wrote a book on childproofing, and he had a chapter on the pool. Mm-hmm. And in the book, he described the different layers of protection you wanted to protect the pool. And at the time, there was a lot of arguing going on about what the best way to secure the pool was. Was it swim lessons? Was it a pool fence? Was it alarms? Was it just parent supervision? Mm-hmm. And he proposed that at a meeting with the Consumer Product Safety Commission and the Broward Health Department, that what you wanted was everything. You wanted multiple layers of protection. So ever since he came up with that in 1989, we've been preaching it, and it's kind of proliferated throughout the water safety community. And we kind of take it for granted now that that thesis is the foundation of water safety.
Sure.
So, I always think of the layers of protection as 5.5 things, 5.5 things. So the first is parent supervision, which we mentioned. Then you want high locks on all the doors and windows that lead to the pool.
Sure.
Alarms that are on those doors and windows that lead to the pool. So usually that's in the form of an alarm where if you open the door, the alarm goes off. But they have a pass-through button, and it gives you 7 seconds to come in or out. Then a fence that isolates the pool from the home and from the rest of the backyard. I prefer a mesh pool safety fence because it's transparent, because you can remove it if you have to for an adult party. You can see the pool area. It's more attractive, so people are more inclined to use them. They're harder to climb because they don't have wrought iron bars. They're intended as a safety fence.
Okay.
It's not some other fence that's retrofitted to make a pool safer. Then alarms in the pool. So if a kid disturbs the water, the alarm goes off, which those have varying degrees of effectiveness. I'm not a huge fan of those. Then skilling the child, teaching a child as young as 6 months old to rescue him or herself through ISR, like Natalie does. And then the half one, the 5.5, is CPR, where if all the other layers fail and there is an accident, that you have CPR training so you can do what you have to do to keep your kid resuscitated until 911 arrives and hopefully they get to a hospital.
One thing I want to add on that most parents or people are not aware of is also pet doors.
Yes, huge.
There have been several children that I personally know the family where the child escaped out the pet door.
Yeah.
And you can lock them, but if you don't need it, remove it.
Get rid of it, yeah, at least until they're too old to fit through it. Doggy doors are huge. It happens all the time. And that's why those other layers, like the pool fence, the pool alarm, the stuff that's kind of outside the house are so important, because things like pet doors.
What happened to me one time at my friend Heather's house, and Josie was already skilled in the water, but we were right there in her living room. I've been to her house, I can't tell you how many times. Never even thought about that pet door.
Sure.
And took my eye off of her, and mind you, she's 2.5, or playing at a home that has kids for 2 seconds, probably longer than 2 seconds. I look over, and there she was going right out that doggy door.
Probably after a dog.
Well, no, the cat.
Oh, the cat.
I think it was. I could call hers a cat door.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was going right out that thing, and I thought, wow, just like that. That's how it happens. You know, it wasn't at my house. I was visiting somebody else's, and she didn't even think about it either because her kids were older, and it was just not something, that crossed her mind. So that's why I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that's an example of when the locks and alarms on the doors and windows wouldn't have been enough, right?
Yep.
Because the pet door
So even if you
access.
have no children or small children, and you have a home with a pet door, always keep that in mind if you have guests over that.
I've been talking a lot about the Swiss cheese model. Have I told you this, or have you heard me say it? So the idea is, and I learned it from another industry, but the idea is that the more layers of Swiss cheese you have in a row, the less likely it is that you're going to have one hole that goes all the way to the table.
That's
right.
Yes.
And because each layer kind of has holes in it where something could happen. You could climb furniture over to a pool fence and climb over it, right? A kid could hit her head and not be able to do ISR effectively. You could have to use the restroom.
Fall into cold water.
Or fall in cold water. You could, have to use the restroom, or your other kid, runs inside with a bloody nose and you don't do supervision. So all the layers kind of have these holes in them, but the more you have, the less likely it is you're going to get one, that you're going to be able to have all the holes line up. And so the more slices of cheese you have, the more likely it is that you're going to have one block the way.
Well, that's with Jake. We were visiting somebody else's home. They had a pool. He didn't, drown in the pool. It was the intercoastal, but supervision failed. I was tending to our 3-month-old, and he was playing with his cousins. There were 3 other adults in that room that he just, walked out of a door. So the supervision failed. The doors were not locked. They did have the beep, beep, beep chime, so the door might have been ajar, and maybe that's why it didn't go. We had put something on like a wheelbarrow to block where he couldn't go on the dock. That was moved. He had taken traditional swim lessons months earlier, learned nothing, so he wasn't skilled. So they all failed. And that's why when we're talking about these layers, I know ISR is big with this, that the lessons are meant to be one layer, one piece of the cheese, I guess you could say.
One layer of cheese.
And that they're supposed to be the last line of defense.
Absolutely, that they're supposed to be the last line of defense.
You never say you're drown. I see this on Facebook when people say
there is
you can't drown-proof a child. No one can drown-proof a child.
No drown-proofing. And our objective is that if those layers fail, that a child will be able to handle that situation, an accidental fall in, independently and be able
Yes.
to rescue themselves.
That was one of the things that I wanted you to talk about. Well, one, how long have you been an instructor?
Okay, great. I got certified to be an ISR instructor in 2006, so this is my 13th year
Wow,
of teaching.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
She started when she was 9.
When I was 9.
Yeah.
I was actually introduced to ISR when I was 16, legit 16. I walked into my backyard and I saw the most amazing thing I had seen in my life, which was this little peanut of an 18-month-old swimming back and forth between his parents. And it just rocked my world to see a baby
Yeah.
swimming, because I didn't know that babies could swim. I had seen the cover of the Nirvana album with the picture of the baby under the water, but that was the extent of my knowledge around it. And so fast forward years later, I had my boys and knew about ISR, and it wasn't even a consideration. It was just a given that they were going to have these lessons. They went through the lessons, they got skilled, and I was moving down to South Florida to possibly for my husband to change careers. And when Joanne Barnett, the president of ISR, heard that we were moving down, she asked me if I would consider bringing the program down to Broward County because they didn't have anyone teaching it there. And when she invited me to do that, I was like, really? You think I can do that? Because I had seen ISR for years, but it just looked like magic to me. And I didn't know, and I knew all of the protocols that the instructors would share with me, but to imagine that I could do that it just kind of blew my mind.
Yeah.
So I said yes, and I got trained, and I have been teaching every day since then. I just love it. I hope that I can do it for as long as my body allows.
Yeah.
Even 13 years later, it is so exciting to watch a child go from not having the skills of how to handle that environment to becoming independent and confident and just rocking it. Not to say that we would ever say that you can't stop supervising your child because they've had ISR lessons. That's not the case at all.
I've always had the utmost respect because I've seen, probably 1,000 lessons now between both of my girls and seeing all of our scholarships. And I know hands down, I could never do it. And it's a tough job. You're in the chlorine, you're in the sun, some of you, and just, your passion the passion has to be there. And I've never seen an instructor without that passion.
Yes.
I love seeing that passion. One thing I wanted you to point out and is talk about how you're different, how ISR is different than other swim programs.
We have a lot of differences, but I would say the biggest one is our objective. And it's really important when parents are looking for swim lessons to consider what the objective is. And again, our objective is if a child reaches the water unsupervised, that child is going to have the skills to save their life.
Okay.
I was just speaking with a client today who was saying that her best friend has a 3.5-year-old who's a really strong swimmer. So they felt super confident about his skills. And something happened when he jumped in one day and he started to panic because he didn't have the survival aspect. So the biggest difference is we're teaching children what to do if they're ever in any situation in the water and something doesn't feel right. Rather than panic, which is what we usually do as humans, wondering when we're going to get that next breath, we're teaching them as soon as anything doesn't feel right, as soon as you can't find the steps or the wall, you get in your float, breathe and rest. And from there, not only are they able to breathe and rest, but they're able to make a choice from a calm place.
Sure.
They're able to problem solve. So our objective is to give them those skills that then they can build a great foundation for
and have fun in the water.
Yes.
Yeah.
Doing stroke work, snorkeling, surfing, free diving, being on the swim team. So of course, our objective is to keep them safe and alive, and it lays an incredible foundation for all kinds of aquatic opportunities to have fun and feel great about themselves.
And one of the things I love about ISR, because 88% they say of children that fall in the water do so fully clothed. It's an accident. They're not anticipating it. Jake fell in fully clothed, heavy pants. He was still in diapers, shoes, a fleece. Had he gone through ISR at his age, had he started when our girls started, he would have known how to do it in his clothes because...
Yes. But once once they're fully skilled in their bathing suit, generally around the last week of lessons, we'll take a couple of days to have them practice fully clothed. If they're wearing diapers, then they're wearing a regular diaper, socks and shoes, because it is such a different experience.
Sure.
We want them to be able to learn how to make those adjustments under the safety and guidance of an ISR instructor versus being out there in the real world trying to figure it out on their own.
Sure.
So that if they are encountered with that situation, they've already done it before and they know how to respond in a calm way.
I had the thought the other day, because ISR is teaching kids what to do when they're panicking in the water, when they're in situations they don't like, that ISR is like self-defense classes for the water, right?
Yeah.
You know, the point of self-defense classes are to teach you what to do when you're panicked, when something is happening you don't like, and it's kind of the same thing. You know, what do I do when things aren't going well?
Yes.
And I want to protect myself in this environment? It's like self-defense for the pool.
We're literally teaching them to use
of
their
these
float as their
analogies.
backup plan. We're literally teaching them that if they're in any situation, to use their float as their backup plan.
So, you know, I've mentioned before that our girls have done ISR. Julia was 8 months when she started, and Josie was 6 months. And probably anyone listening has seen that video of Josie in the yellow dress, sitting on the steps, falls in. It's got over 200 million views, I think,
I
on
don't think
social
most people
media.
realize that it's your child.
Yeah,
You know, I think most people know the video, but they don't know the backstory. Which
Yeah,
is
when I
even more
tell
powerful.
people, you know, then they're like, "Oh, I know, I've seen that video." But little Josie, she's almost 4 now, and she's learning the free stroke, which is amazing.
Does she know she's famous yet?
No,
No?
no.
Are you?
I did find that outfit though, and I think I gotta like frame
You have to,
that
for
outfit.
sure.
Yeah. So, even the shoes, but yeah, we don't want it to go to her head. You know,
Right.
she's only 4. But,
Internationally famous
yeah.
before one.
Superstar.
yeah. But that, I think, you know, that video, because it continues to go viral. One page shared it and has almost 100 million just on this one page.
Yeah.
So, and it's like 300,000 shares or something crazy. So even though I've taken a lot of heat on that one from the, you know, the comments and so forth, it's reaching a lot of people that it's like, oh, just like the Miles video and the blue pajamas. I saw that video before I even had children, and I'll never forget seeing it and being like, you know, and even talking about it. I didn't have kids at the time, but I remember that video, just like I feel like people, you know, remember that video. And I've said this before, but when, you know, my husband and I, we were done when we had Julia. We had our boy, our girl. I was, you know, an older senior mom, I guess you could say. And when we lost Jake, we decided to have another child. And when she was born, I had told people that God just wasn't ready. Like, he wanted me, you know, to have another child, and you never know, maybe she'll save the world someday. I literally said that. And then that video obviously is not saving the world, but it did go worldwide, and it reached a lot of people, and it really, you know, got people talking about drowning prevention.
I mean, it might be saving some person's world. You know, some person's child is their world. You know? So some person's world has definitely been saved by her. For sure.
You know, I think I say this a lot. Losing a child, you can't even describe it. And I don't want to go get all sad here, but when it's something that's preventable, it cuts even deeper. You know, knowing that just by putting him in these lessons, and I will never know 100%, had he been in ISR, could it have saved him because of the conditions? But knowing that he would have had a chance and known at least what to do, really is what drove me to get the girls safe and, you know, push aside all the negative comments, because, you know, I know that these lessons save lives. And, you know, when I hear people saying, oh, they're too young, they need to start when they're 2 or they're 3, which is what I was told. When you look at the drowning statistics, most of them are under 2. Last year in Florida, we had 88 drownings. And I want to say, I should have brought those statistics with me, 50 of them were 2 and under. So when people say that, it just drives me nuts, because, you know, in most of those cases, those lessons could have saved their life.
You know, when we first started, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommended children should get lessons at 5 years old. And we used to say, even back then, in the early 90s, well, most of the kids who drowned didn't make it to 5.
Yeah.
So waiting till 5 isn't helping those kids.
No.
You know? And thankfully, they've, you know, adapted their stance.
Sure.
And
They say 1 and up
now. They say 1 and up, which is way better.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still not where we'd like it, but you know, much better than it was. But yeah, you know, people thinking that they can wait until 3, 4, 5 years old because they're concerned about coordination or earaches or whatever it is. You know, most of the kids who drown don't make it that old.
Well, and one thing also to point out, we're talking a lot about ISR, but it is a huge part of, what we do for Live Like Jake is the protocols.
Yes.
The lessons are 10 minutes a day, 5 days a week, 4 to 6 weeks. And Dr. Harvey Barnett, I got to give him a shout out, had put this together 52 years ago, right?
Yes.
And
as a result of coming home one day and seeing the ambulance out in front of his neighbor's home. And he later found out that his neighbor's 18-month-old had drowned in a retention ditch. And that day he decided to commit his life to ending childhood drowning. I think it's really important for parents to know that it can happen so easily.
Yes.
I had almost drowned twice in my life before I reached age 5 in open water conditions. I have pulled my 18-month-old out of a pool, and for so many years I didn't share that story with anyone because I was so ashamed that I had let it happen. That I took my eyes off of him, and he was able to get into the water, and I was actually in the pool when it happened. So he could have drowned 5 feet away from me.
Which happens.
And I think that a lot of parents are in this bubble of, it's not going to happen to me. I'm a good mom, or this or that. And I really think it's important for everyone to know that that's just not the case. Don't fall for that. That you need to be vigilant. This happens on average 11 times a day. So to me, it's not a question of if they're going to reach the water alone. It's when this happens, is this going to be an empowering experience, or is this going to be a tragedy?
And I also want to point out with Jake is he was an extremely cautious child. He was not your typical almost 3-year-old boy. He had just started to go down slides the right way instead of on his tummy with his feet first. Like, he did not run to water. He respected it. He liked it, but it just he was not the type that just jumped in like most children, and it still happened to him. Yeah. We know, his favorite thing to do was pushing his baby doll stroller, and we did find it in the water, so we're confident, that he pushed it. He wanted to push it on the dock one more time, and it was dark, but I just like to point that out, that, he was not your typical rambunctious boy. Those boys or children even more, need to be in these lessons. All children need to be in it. But he wasn't one of those kids, and it still happened.
Drowning doesn't discriminate.
No.
And we may have, as parents, these ideas or these beliefs in our mind about why it's not going to happen to our child. And what that does is keeps us from taking the action that we need to do to make sure that they're safe.
And there's pastors that have lost their children. Rabbi, it doesn't. Pediatricians,
Olympic gold medalists.
Olympic gold. It just does not discriminate.
Yeah. And I think so many of the parents I've talked to who have lost a child, like you, have described themselves as helicopter moms.
Yeah.
Usually from decent backgrounds with, not the kind of, not bad parents, not people you'd ever imagine would be bad parents. Just human beings.
And they call it what? A lapse of supervision, not a lack of supervision. We're human. You cannot, and I can't stand the parents on social media that act like they watch their kids literally 24/7.
I always tell them those are the parents that terrify me the most.
Yeah.
If you're a mom and you say, I don't need this because I always watch my kid, I flat out respond to them and say, you're the mom that scares me more than the mom that says, I need this because I don't always watch my kid. The mom that thinks she's always watching her kid or dad, those scare me because it's impossible.
And I'll bring up sometimes, let's just say you end up hurting yourself and you have to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
It's something unexpected, and now you're not watching your child. You can't, you can't always watch your child. You have to.
You never stub your toe.
Yeah.
Your other kid never, comes inside with a bloody nose. You never, have the UPS guy drop packages off. You never have someone knock on the door you're not expecting.
Yeah.
You never get a stomach flu.
No.
There's a
All
million reasons why you might not look, why you might be watching the child.
And what we're up against is a brilliant, creative, persistent, curious child. That at that age, all they're about is learning and getting to what they want. So coming up against that, it's more of a challenge than watching, caring for someone who's older, when all that they're doing, they're magnetically attracted to that water. And if they want to get to the water, they're going to figure it out. Mm-hmm. They're brilliant.
I want to make sure that we mention the law that's hopefully going to pass, or I want to mention at least.
Yes.
There is legislation that is pending right now that's in committee. It's being discussed to increase the number of layers of protection required when you either build a pool or you sell a house that has a pool with it, where instead of having one layer of protection, which is currently the law, you need at least two. So it's super important, and if you go to our Facebook page, Lifesaver Real Pool Fence, you can find those committee members. So I wanted to make sure we talk about that.
Yes, very important. I really, truly hope that
Absolutely
passes.
It's going to be great, and hopefully we can celebrate it in April. So
I think
that's it.
That's it. That's it.
Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you. That went really fast.
All right.
This has been Tell Us Your Business, where a special guest comes on every week and tells us what they do. All shows can be seen on amp2.tv, and if you wish to be a guest, call 866-224-5422 and tell us about your business. That's 866-224-5422. This has been an amp2.tv production.